Some teachers teach for 10 years and still lose half their class. Not because they lack effort, not because students are stubborn, but because one teaching style cannot carry 5 different types of minds sitting in front of you every single day. In one classroom, you'll find fast thinkers, slow processors, visual learners, quiet observers, and restless experimenters. Yet many teachers use one approach and expect universal results. That's not teaching. That's hoping. Today, we break the illusion. You're about to see the 5 teaching styles every educator must understand, not just to teach, but to adapt, control, and dominate different learning situations with precision. Welcome to Tomphonics Academy, where we don't guess in classrooms, we design outcomes. If you've ever felt like your teaching works for some students but fails others, this is where everything starts to make sense. Let's begin with the most dominant style in education today, direct teaching. It looks powerful. It feels efficient. And in the right moment, it can be extremely effective. Direct teaching is simple. The teacher leads. The students follow. Knowledge flows in one direction, from instructor to learner. It is structured, controlled, and designed to deliver information quickly and clearly. This method shines when introducing new topics, explaining complex ideas step by step, or preparing students for exams where accuracy matters more than exploration or creativity. But here's the hidden cost. When overused, direct teaching turns students into passive receivers. They listen, they nod, but they don't process deeply. And what is not processed is quickly forgotten. You may finish your lesson feeling productive, while your students leave with shallow understanding. Because listening is not learning. Exposure is not mastery. The real power of direct teaching is not in using it constantly, it's in using it strategically. Introduce with clarity, then transition. Because teaching is not a fixed style, it's a dynamic system. And that brings us to the second style, facilitative teaching. This is where the teacher steps back and the students step forward. In this approach, the teacher is no longer the center of attention. Instead, the teacher creates an environment where students discuss, collaborate, and construct understanding together. Learning becomes active. Students explain concepts to each other. They question, challenge, and refine ideas. And in doing so, they begin to own the knowledge. This style works best when you want deeper understanding, critical thinking, and communication skills to emerge naturally from your classroom interactions. But here's the risk. Without structure, facilitative teaching can become chaotic. Some students dominate, others disappear, and learning becomes uneven across the room. The key is controlled freedom. You guide without overpowering. You observe without disappearing. You design interactions that lead students without dragging them. Now, we step into the third style, inquiry-based learning. This is where curiosity becomes the engine of the classroom. Instead of giving answers, the teacher asks questions. Instead of explaining everything, the teacher creates problems that students must explore, investigate, and solve. Students become thinkers, researchers, and discoverers. They learn not just what to think, but how to think. And that changes everything. This method builds deep understanding, creativity, and problem-solving skills. But it also requires patience, because learning becomes slower, but stronger. The danger? Without guidance, students can get lost. Inquiry without direction becomes confusion, and confusion without intervention becomes frustration. So the teacher becomes a designer of questions and a guide of thinking paths. You don't remove struggle, you structure it. Now we move to the fourth style, Demonstration teaching. This is where learning becomes visible. Instead of just telling, you show. Step by step, action by action. Students see the process, not just the result. This works powerfully for practical skills, experiments, problem-solving methods, and anything that requires visual or physical understanding, because sometimes seeing is the shortcut to understanding. But even demonstration has limits. Some students will copy perfectly, while others still miss the deeper logic behind the action. Because seeing is powerful, but understanding still requires thinking beyond imitation. If you overuse demonstration, students become dependent. They wait for you to show every step before they act. And slowly, independence disappears from your classroom. So again, the principle repeats. Show clearly, then release control. Because the goal is not perfect copying. The goal is confident application without you. Now we enter the fifth and most powerful style, coaching-oriented teaching. This is where transformation happens quietly, but deeply. Here, the teacher becomes a coach, not leading the whole class at once, but guiding individuals based on their specific struggles, strengths, and pace of learning. You observe closely. You adjust quietly. You intervene precisely. And suddenly, students who were falling behind begin to catch up. Not because you taught louder, but because you taught smarter. This style works best when students need personal correction, targeted feedback, or emotional support to break through learning barriers that group teaching cannot solve. But here's the pressure. Coaching demands time. And in a crowded classroom, you cannot coach everyone at once. So without a system, this method becomes overwhelming. The solution is rotation. While some students work independently, you coach strategically. You move across the room like a surgeon, not randomly, but with intention. Now pause. You've seen all 5 styles, but here's the truth. No one tells teachers. These styles are not separate. They are meant to work together. Teaching is not about choosing one style. It's about knowing when to switch, when to lead, when to step back, when to question, when to show, and when to coach. Think of it like a flow. You don't stay in one position, you move. And your movement determines whether your students stay stuck or move forward with you. A powerful lesson often starts with direct teaching. You set the foundation. You define the concept. You create clarity from the beginning. Then you shift into facilitation. Students begin to engage, discuss, and process what they've just learned. This is where information starts turning into understanding. Next, you introduce inquiry. You challenge them. You push them to think deeper, to connect ideas, to discover patterns on their own. Then comes demonstration. You correct misunderstandings. You model the right approach. You bring clarity back into the system where confusion exists. And finally, coaching. You close the gaps. You fix individual weaknesses. You make sure no student is left behind in silence. This is what mastery looks like. Not louder teaching, not longer explanations, but smarter transitions between styles. Because the biggest mistake teachers make is assuming one successful student means the whole class understands. That illusion destroys learning outcomes quietly. Real teaching requires awareness. You must read your classroom like data. Who is engaged? Who is lost? Who is pretending to understand? Because every student gives signals. Small signals, quiet signals, and the teacher who can read them becomes unstoppable. This is why elite educators don't teach. They adapt in real time. They shift styles without hesitation. They respond faster than confusion can grow. Teaching is a loop, not a line. You move forward, then adjust, then reinforce, then refine. And that loop continues until learning becomes solid. When you master this loop, something powerful happens. Your classroom becomes stable. Engagement rises. Noise becomes purposeful. And learning becomes visible. And suddenly, teaching feels easier. Not because students changed, but because your approach evolved. Now here's your challenge. Stop asking, which teaching style is best? Start asking, when should I switch? Because the best teachers are not loyal to one method. They are loyal to results. If your students are passive, switch. If they are confused, switch. If they are disengaged, switch. Because staying in one style too long is the fastest way to lose your classroom without realizing it. But when you learn to switch with intention, your classroom transforms into a system that carries every student forward. And that's the difference between teaching randomly and teaching with design. So the next time you walk into your classroom, don't just plan your lesson. Plan your transitions. Know when you will explain, when you will step back, when you will challenge, when you will show, and when you will coach. Because clarity in your teaching flow creates clarity in your students' minds. And clarity is what separates average teachers from unforgettable ones. If this shifted how you see teaching, then you're ready for the next level. Because knowing styles is one thing. Building a system that runs your classroom is another. Inside our deeper training, we break down exactly how to structure lessons, control classrooms, and design learning experiences that work across all levels. From attention control to retention systems to classroom authority frameworks, you'll see teaching in a completely different way. So if you're serious about becoming the teacher, students remember, not just the one they sit in front of. Then it's time to go beyond teaching styles and step into teaching mastery. Because at the highest level, teaching is not an act, it's a system. And systems are what create consistent results. Not once, not sometimes, but every single time you teach. And when that happens, your classroom stops being stressful and starts becoming predictable. Students become more confident, more independent, more capable of learning, even without constant supervision. And that is the ultimate goal of teaching. Not dependence, but independence. Where your presence is powerful, but not required for every step. Because when students can learn without you constantly leading, you have truly taught. Now take this into your next lesson. Apply it. Test it. Refine it. And when you see the shift, you'll realize you were never just teaching. You were building a system all along. If you got value from this session, why don't you tag a teacher, share this, and comment below on what you've learned. Kindly subscribe to this channel and tell me what you would love us to teach on. Until then, I want to see teachers prosper.